Hey everyone, Wazoo here, and in our previous episode of this RPG series, we put together a basic combat screen. So if we hit the M tile, which is our monster, we're presented with a combat screen where we can have the option of attack, defend, or flee. And if we flee, then we can run away, and the monster still lives. Otherwise, if we attack it, the monster is insta-deathed. So let's add some basic combat in this video. We are just going to have some turns going back and forth between the monster and the player. I think this will be pretty cool. Okay, so back in our project.h, let's add another struct here. And what we're going to do is we are going to fill this out. This is what we're going to call a combatant. And so every entity that enters combat will have an associative combatant structure. So then in the top of combat.c, let's combatant, and we'll just give it some values, and then we'll call it monster combatant, combatant, just to make it a little bit more descriptive here. And again, these are kind of junk values for now. We can just update these as we go along. Okay, and then we'll add another type def in here. And this will be an enum. And this will be a turn. So combat turn player and combat turn monster. And let's call this combat turn state. And then at the top of combat.c again, let's declare a combat turn state of, we can just call it combat turn. Combat turn, and we'll initialize it to turn player. So the player gets first dibs. And then let's have a little combat log. It'll be a string, and that will reference from within our combat screen. Okay. So let's update our combat screen. We are going to add it right here, maybe. So underneath our title, let's draw text, and we're going to use text format. And we are going to take player, I guess, health. So hit points and %D. And we'll be using player combatant HP and player combatant max HP. And then, okay, we want to draw this text at an X coordinate of 60, a Y coordinate of 80, just because we want to stay underneath our title there. So 80 and a font size of 20, and we want to do it in white. And similarly, we want to do the same thing for the monster. So let's just cut and paste this. And we want monster 8p, and then monster combatant. Okay, and then we want to draw this on the Y value, a Y position of 100, so that it's below our player HP text there. And then what we want to do is we want to take out this text here, and instead we want to draw the combat log at 60, a Y of 130, a font size of 20, and in light gray text. So let's just remove this right here. And then we will only draw this little menu for the player if it is our turn. So if turn equals combat turn player. Okay. And that was turn, right? Or I guess it would be combat.c. Combat turn. Okay. So if combat turn equals combat turn player. So next what we're going to do is we're going to need to update our game.c. So whenever we switch into combat here, we're going to need to copy over our player and monster combatant structures. So let's reset our combat values. So we're going to need our monster combatant.hp. We'll reset that to 10 health. And our monster combatant attack value of get random value between 3 and let's say 6. Let's say it's a 1d6 if we're talking D&D type lingo. So let's grab a random value between 3 and 6, and that'll be the attack value of this monster. And our turn, what did we call it? Combat turn. Okay, so combat turn equals combat turn player. And then we are going to print into the combat log a monster appears. Okay, so then the game will switch into the state combat, and we will be able to use these structures here to then go through the combat. And so in order to use this, or in order to reference it, we're going to need to declare them in our project.h. Okay, so extern player combatant and extern monster combatant. And then we probably need to initialize them like this. Let's see if that builds. Okay, so combat log. Okay, so then we would also need, I wonder if we can draw make a function here to update that combat log. Update combat log, and then const char text. And then let's go ahead and copy this right in here. Combat log text. And then let's put the function signature in our project.h, right in the combat.c. So if we want to update the combat log, we can do that right here from game. So update combat log, monster appears. And that should clean up that section a little bit. Well, by one line. And then this is combat turn player. Okay, can we do this? Okay, we also need to extern our combat turn state. Okay, and this is likely going to blow up. So maybe what we should do is move this small setup function right here. So turn the game state into combat, and then we want to, why don't we try this? Why don't we try calling it startup combat? Okay. And then here, maybe we'll need to pass something there in the future, but maybe for now we can call that And then we no longer need the combat turn player. Okay, so then so far so good. We're calling startup combat here. And okay, I don't think this is going to work at all. Okay, so in our startup combat, let's set our values here. So player combatant equals combatant. And then it was what? 20, 20, 10, and then monster combatant 2025, and then 10, 10, 3. Let's initialize the monsters there. Okay, and then that way we shouldn't need to declare, we shouldn't need to extern the player or the monster. Let's try that out. Okay, so far so good. And then, so if we're in state combat, let's create a update combat. So we've got a startup combat, and let's do an update combat. And then in our functions here, we'll just create a update combat function declaration there. And then in the game.c, let's move all of this stuff into update combat. Okay, if we're in combat, we go to update combat. Okay, and then this is what we... Okay, so if combat turn is equal to the turn. Okay, so if we're in our combat turn player, then we move in the keys. Okay, so if we push A, we want to attack. So if combat turn equals player, okay, let's set this up here. So we want to monster combatant dot HP minus equals player combatant attack. So we subtract the attack value from the monster health. Pretty primitive. And then what we're going to do is update the combat log. So you hit for blank, or you hit for the value, and then the combat turn equals combat turn monster. Okay, and then so if our key is defend, so if is key pressed key D, then let's go ahead and send printf combat log size of combat log you defend. And then we switch the combat turn into the combat turn monster. Okay, and then if we flee, let's just, actually we can use that one function that we just made. Is it update combat log? Okay, so update, since we're not using any special update combat log there. And then update combat log flee. You flee. Okay. And then likely we may have a problem with this world, this player.x and world position.x, but we'll solve that shortly here. Okay, and then so if we are in, I'll just turn this into a switch. I kind of prefer them to these if blocks. So switch combat turn. So case combat turn player. And then let's, so then this is the end of it. So then let's break. And then case combat turn monster. Okay, so then what we want to do is have the monster attack the player. So if the monster combatant HP is bigger than 0, then player combatant HP minus equals monster combatant attack, which is a random value, remember? And then we update the combat log. So sn printf combat log, size of combat log, and then monster hits for %d, and we'll use monster combatant attack. Okay, we'll print that out. And then we'll update the turn to go back to combat turn player. So combat turn equals combat turn player. Okay, so now if the health, if we've defeated the monster, then update combat log. You defeated the monster. And then we turn our game state. We turn our game state back to state map. And we clear our tile, which we took all that out. So now we make sure to do that here. So map player.y player.x equals, and player combatant dot health equals player combatant max health. So we heal the player up. Let's see what happens when we start up the combat. So maybe what we'll do is move that logic up to start player combat. Okay. And then so combat turn player. Okay, so maybe outside of this loop, let's try sticking this here. If player combatant HP is less than or equal to 0, update combat log. You were defeated. And then exit the game here, do something here. Exit, quit. Okay. And now let's see. I don't think this will build right away. We've got, yeah. Okay, so player is undefined. So let's do a extern player. And then we had player defined at the top of game.c. Yep. And we've got game state. And we've got the world x position, y position. Okay, so let's declare them up here. World position x. And eventually maybe we can move that into the map screen. But for now, let's stick them right here. Get rid of this static declaration here. And then let's declare them as external. Okay, now let's see if we get our turns working properly here. Okay, so we go to our combat. Okay, a monster appears. Okay, so that is looking a little bunched up here. So let's go back. We can keep this running in Visual Studio. I hope I can show this properly on the screen here. So all we got to do is lower down the Y position of our, where we're drawing everything. Okay, so we want to draw our, let's draw our player a little bit lower here. So instead of 80, let's swap this and go for 100. And go for 120. And then a monster appears, so basically the combat log. And then this, so we want 130, and let's put this at 160. And let's hit the hot reload. And if all goes well, okay, all didn't go well. Well, I guess we move this one down. So a monster appears. So that means the combat log, oh, is too close to there. So let's move this to maybe 150. And then our player options down to 170. And let's hot reload. And we get that. Okay. Our player stuff a little more, maybe down to 200. A Y value of 200. Okay, there we go. That looks a little bit neater. Okay. So we can attack, defend, or flee. So if we hit defend, then we should be, we kind of skip our attack and the monster attacks us. We don't really take into account any kind of defensive value. So we just let the monster wail on us. So the monster hits for 5. If we flee, okay, it still works. So if we attack, our monster health goes down. We've hit for 4. And the monster hits us for 4, sorry, and we hit for 5. And let's try attacking again. And it looks like we won. And it looks like the monster has disappeared. And our map has reset. Let's try running that again. And okay, so we've got a monster. And yeah, attack, defend, and flee. And yeah, everything looks good there. Okay, so we've got some basic combat turn taking in this video. That's all I wanted to cover. This will be under tag video 0, or tag, yeah, maybe V or video 0003, something like that. And I'll put it in the description down below, which tag corresponds to this video. But you should be able to find it okay. If not, just pull down the latest from the GitHub repository. No biggie. We will see you in the next one. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good one, everyone. Peace.